Well, good morning. Good morning, all of you who experienced the worship service with under the leadership of Greg and Katie, Sean, Betty, and Matthew. I'd like to extend a big thank you to the five of them this morning for carrying on without me. And I'd also like to say a special thank you to Jesse and Charlie here at the Iverson home to help me set up for this morning. It's certainly a unique day in that this is a first, an absolute first, that I've ever had the opportunity to preach from home during this unique period of time. And well, here we are. So I'd like to welcome you to our living room, and hopefully we find our way through. Not only this time, as Katie and Greg mentioned this morning, just out of a sense of precaution, I'm here today. Benjamin has not been feeling well the last couple of days and has been tested, and we await his results. And until that time, the Iverson family is kind of, well, just hunkering down and seeing where things go as we move into this future. But I do welcome the opportunity to share this time with you this morning, and hope that the week ahead is one that is filled with, well, filled with something resembling normal, even though normal is so out of our experience right now. What are some of the things that remind you of years or moments or experiences of the past? It could be a sound, a smell. It could be some place where you travel to that reminds you of something or of some experience that you've had, some moment in time that is just imprinted within your memory. I mean, for me, it's often music. Music seems to kind of elicit a almost a replay of a moment in time that has been imprinted or is almost photographic within my mind. I can remember my grandmother taking a service at Fenland Falls United Church. I don't remember any of the prayers. I don't remember what she preached on. I don't remember anything about the service except for the very end. And whenever we sing How Great Thou Art in church, I have this picture of my grandmother announcing from the pulpit at the end of the service that she took, "Now let's lift this one to the rafters," she said. "Let's sing with all our hearts, How Great Thou Art." And whenever I hear that hymn, it just takes me back to that very moment. I know sometimes sitting with my dad, we'll be listening to some music and it will remind him of something that he played in his days as a youth in a band that he had in Thornhill, Ontario. And he'll begin to reminisce about not only who he played with, but where they would play that song. And just kind of live within that moment for a very brief period of time. When we hear songs like Yesterday from the Beatles, "Yesterday my troubles seemed so far away," it takes us back in time. Maybe it's "The Way We Were" by Barbara Streisand, or one of my favorites from university. Not that it was a favorite song, but it just reminds me, Cher belting out "If I Could Turn Back Time," or a country song, which some people have said is kind of very reminiscent of me, by Toby Keith. It goes, "I'm not as good as I once was, but I'm as good once as I ever was." And when we hear these songs or have these memories, we like to look back and think, if I could have if I could just go there again, if we could just live in that moment again, it would be wonderful. It would feel absolutely fantastic. Uh, I could live that all over again. And we have this romanticized memory or remembrance of how it felt and how we felt in that moment. And it, it we think it would be fantastic to do so because we know what it felt like. We know what we felt like in that moment and the power that it had over us. And it's settling in many ways. Last week, our scripture reading from Exodus was the Israelites crossing the Red Sea. They were stuck in a moment, didn't know how to get out of it. Standing on the bank, only water before them, Egyptian army behind them. And they think they're doomed. They've got no place to go. And of course, we know the story. Moses opens up the Red Sea through the power of God. They walk on dry land across, and when they get safely to the other side, they look back and see the Egyptian army in a whole heap of trouble as the waters came crashing down upon them. And so they find themselves on the other side of the Red Sea. And they begin to travel this long, long journey towards the promised land. Yet, as we know, the quickest way to get from point A to point B is a straight line. But Moses doesn't take them on a straight line. They begin to head almost in the opposite direction of where it is that they need to go. They're at a 90-degree angle from the promised land, and instead of heading straight east, they begin to go south, thus beginning the long, long journey. And if you go south from the edge of the Red Sea, you end up in a deserted, dry wasteland where there's very little life, no water, very few sources of food. And with the Israelites, well, understandably, they begin to question, they begin to complain to Moses, why have you brought us out into this desert so that we might die of hunger and thirst? We were better off back in Egypt, they said. Better off because even though we were under the thumb of Pharaoh and the Egyptians, slaves for hundreds and hundreds of years, at least we had food to eat and water to drink, and we knew what to expect. Because out here in the desert, we have no idea, absolutely no idea. So let's go back. Let's go back to where it was that we came from. Or at least we wish we could. Because it's got to be better than starving out here in the desert. We're kind of looking in this very moment of time of a pandemic, of great upheaval, of social distancing, of not knowing whether a loved one just has a bad cold or something worse. We want to go back to when we can get back to normal again. To have the freedom just to move around, to gather at church, go to the store, not line up, not have masks on. But I think one of the big challenges for us in our very understanding of today and what lies in front of us is that what was normal before will never be normal again. We look back almost romantically, even 8 months ago, about how simple life seemed. Yet 8 months ago, life was full of its own problems, its own challenges. But where we find ourselves today is in a place where we are filled with the same type of anxiety and frustration and questioning that the Israelites had. How have we found ourselves in this point in time? Where the goalposts of life keep moving in front of us, in front of us, in front of us, in front of us, and in directions of which we'd never imagined. And we're left to navigate that without any answers or very little direction, other than simply wash your hands, keep a distance, wear a mask. Normal for us and the way forward for us has changed so remarkably. 8 months ago, we never imagined doing all of these services online. Even last week, I never imagined trying to preach a sermon from my living room and having Katie and Greg and the team do the rest of the service from the church. All of our meetings are now online. I mean, we're moving in directions that not only challenge us, but are really upsetting to the core of our understanding of how we have lived life in the past, and not exactly sure what direction we're moving into the future. And the danger is that we begin to romanticize the past. I mean, all of us have this notion. It doesn't matter what it is or in what situation or what experience that we've had, that, oh, it was better then. I mean, I can go back to my days as a young person, and child, young teenager, even at Wesley United Church in Regina, Saskatchewan, and my vision of a vibrant and an awesome congregation and experience of community comes from that. But I can never go back to that because it no longer exists. The world is not the same as it was in 1979 or 80 or 81 or 82. Because in 2020, how we communicate, how we travel, how we do things has changed so exponentially that our communities have changed as well. So going back to normal is something that we long for, but increasingly more challenging. Author, poet, speaker, and humanitarian Sonia Renee Taylor writes that we will not go back to normal because normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal other than we normalized greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, and lack. We should not long to return, my friends. We are being given the opportunity to stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and nature. This is what was happening in the desert with the Israelites. The Israelites were being given a new opportunity to stitch together something unique and special, and that offered them freedom, as opposed to being held captivity of what was in the past. In our reading this morning, God simply says, draw near. Draw near and I will hear you. And what you need is already with you. To find your way through the wilderness of our experience of today towards something that is new, something that is different, and something that is not normal, but unique and an opportunity for us in this time. And so while you've been enjoying your coffee this morning, and I've been struggling through this new experience and context of trying to speak to you from my living room as opposed to with others around me, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a blessed week ahead. Uh, Hope and pray for everyone's health and safety. And as we continue to navigate this time together, let us always look for the opportunities that lay in front of us rather than the things that we held on to in the past that don't seem to equate to our experience today. May you go with God's blessing, Christ's peace, and that energetic and, life-filled spirit that lives and breathes through each of us. We'll see you soon. God bless.